Hi. So this is my first ever live YouTube that I'm posting publicly, and I don't have any subscribers, so I don't think anybody's gonna pop on. Or maybe is the one person me? I don't know how to read this. Is somebody there? Can you say hello? Okay, I think that one's just me. So at any rate, I'm on here because I have a personal YouTube that I just kind of like do little videos to like journal normally. And I had a therapy session today, so I just want to kind of share my thoughts. And the reason I'm doing this publicly is because one, this quarantine is pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And some of this stuff I think could help other people. So, just the brief, in case anybody does see this, the brief overview of who I am and my situation is I my name is Lisa or Lee on here, and why the video is doing that. And I didn't really plan this at all. So I'm just gonna talk like I normally do. Maybe I won't post it publicly at the end if it makes absolutely no sense. But so pretty much where I'm at right now in life for my story, like there's a Rise Up challenge on Facebook, and they say, "What is your story and who's your audience and who can you help?" And it's supposed to be in 2 minutes. And I'm in it 47 seconds, so blew that one. But basically, who I am, I'm Lisa. I'm 36. I lost my dad when I was about 2 years, 10 months old. October, yeah. And recently, I'm going through a divorce from somebody that is very similar to my understanding of my father. So I feel like there's some like family karma there, there's like some patterns there. Um, I've learned a lot through that. I'm learning a lot about it where, when I met my soon be ex-husband, still husband, um, there was not like a big like firework. Like I've met other people in relationships and there was just that spark there, but with him it was just a very like comfortable feeling, like safe feeling. And I ignored a lot of red flags early on. I kind of looked at what now I see as like a track record, and I looked at it at like, well, that was his life before I met him. That was, I met him. He was in recovery. That was, due to an addiction. He's sober now. He's goes in a program. So I just thought that was his like previous life. Um, and some of his like baggage I could deal with. Like he had kids from two other women. My dad had boys from two other women before he met my dad, and then they had four. And then my dad died when my sister was like 5.5, not quite, but almost 5.5. I was almost 3. My sister was 15 months, and my mom was pregnant. Literally, a month later, she gave birth to my fourth sister. Um, so my story, I'm also reading this book called Writing to Awaken. So it's really getting to the heart of like, what's your story? A book I highly, highly, highly recommend is called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Oprah also recommends it. It's not just me. And I was re-listening to some of his like audio stuff, and it was like talking about like letting go, and like we just had Easter, and it talks about like Christ is saying like you have to die to be born again and risen again. Oh, there was somebody watching. That one went to 0. I guess I'm boring them. Who's watching? Somebody's watching. Can you say hi? Is it somebody I know? I don't think so. Anyway, so there's just a lot of all of that stuff that I'm kind of like learning about. And my screen is flashing. I don't know if it's flashing other places. Nobody's talking to me. I'm just talking. So anyway, so that's kind of my background. That's my story. And then so I always thought I could like help people through that. And I kind of feel like I'm just not. I always thought about like life coaching. I studied psychology, but I never quite felt able to do that. I'm learning that the trauma of losing my dad, there's a lot to process. So the pain of what I went through within my marriage It's causing me to look at the pain of losing my father early on. So I was doing really well. Like, we've been separated almost a year, it'll be a year in June. I got my own rhythm going on. But now that I'm in quarantine, I have a 2.5-year-old that's super active. He's napping right now. Mommy, 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 watch, watch, watch. What is this? Look at that. Like, and I don't have church. I found a really great church that I like. It's called Journey Church. You should definitely check it out. They're online, JRNY.church. Um, and what else? Like, I'm not working, there's no daycare, it's quarantine. So, like, and people in the spiritual community, they talk about like people are going to see their shadows. Like, what's a shadow? There's a really good movie on it. Deb something wrote a book, like, Why Do Good People Do Bad Things? You should watch it. I think it's on YouTube. Um, And it's pretty much like anything, like a part of us that we kind of said, like, no, that's bad. Like, don't acknowledge it. Don't look at it. Like, you felt ashamed of it. Like, pretty much grows because you're ignoring it. So, a lot of spiritual people are saying, like, look, like, we're at a standstill. If you're not like an essential person, there's nothing to like avoid that with. Like, you are going to deal with your shit. So, now with quarantine, like, I'm dealing with my shit. Like, I'm dealing with the anger of being a single mom, and like I'm back with my parents, like my mom, my stepdad. So I have support in that sense. Like, they're not super hands-on with my son, but I can go to the store and not have to worry about taking him and exposing him. And a lot of people don't have that. My mom had 4 kids. So like I felt like bad feeling the way I feel, but the truth is I feel that. So there's just a lot of things that come up and are coming up. And some of the stuff I worked on today, which this is just for my personal self, this is where I'm at right now. Like, this isn't some big grand overall story, but just where I'm working at right now through like the grieving process of understanding. Like, I have a problem with the transition of like something fucked up happening and then having full closure with it. And it really, like, stupid stuff doesn't hurt me, but if it's like an intimate relationship, somebody I lost that like died, that's one kind of grief. Somebody that like betrayed me, is that's a hard one for me, especially like when it comes to like a really close friend or like my husband. So the steps I'm kind of going through with my therapist are like what she explained grief. It's not like the 6 stages. I mean, they might be intertwined in this, and I forget them off the cuff, but it's pretty much shock that whatever happened, the betrayal, the hurt, the pain, the cheating, the situation, whatever it was, the pain of that, or the shock of that, and then identifying, acknowledging the pain. So this is where I had a problem. Like, I'd get really angry. Like, I would just get really angry because I couldn't label what the pain felt like, because almost labeling it felt worse to me. So, like, we did an exercise with somebody that I felt like should have been more loyal in a situation, and because we're family members versus, the person they kind of in my mind sided with by taking the stance that they took. And she's like, so you felt unheard, you felt betrayed, you felt abandoned. Like, when you say they weren't loyal, and like I never labeled those things. So what she was explaining to me is if you don't label them, it's hard to kind of process and acknowledge that pain and able to go to the next step, which she explained is like finding a purpose and a meaning to that situation. And I tend to think of myself more as like spiritual, so I always look for a purpose, I always look for meaning. Like, even as a kid going through losing the trauma of not having my dad growing up, it was, maybe I can help other people. Um, who is watching? Somebody's watching. Do I know you? Are you there? Can you say hello? Anyway, so I always thought like, okay, if I'm going through it, there's a meaning, there's a purpose, I can help somebody. Like, I always skip that step. So, and then the next one is like relief, acceptance, forgiveness. And the way she explains forgiveness, um, and like that pain, like I can never get somebody, like if they have their stance on the issue, like the example at the family, or they had their stance, we talked about it. There was no like getting them to like really understand where I was coming from in that. And so she kind of explained it in like, there is a debt in the pain that you felt, and you felt that for the reasons you felt that, and they felt their stance was appropriate for whatever their, background understanding of coming they were coming from their own frame of reference to the same situation, right? So, they're never going to understand my pain. So, in a way, it's like a debt that they can't repay, they don't want to repay, they don't see it as a debt, but emotionally, it's like a debt in terms of pain for me. So, if I have to be able to forgive somebody and let go of that transgression. So, a lot of the stuff we talked about today was just like letting go, which really just means a transition from the old way that things were, the old status of relationship, to the new status of a relationship or a stage in life. Like, I moved high schools and we moved areas, and that was like a death. That was a grieving period. That was like ripping apart my attachment to what was like the place where I was born and grew up, you know? So, so there's a process of like letting go and the pain. um, she was just pretty much saying like you have to figure out what that pain is and kind of label it instead of delay it or mask it or avoid it. Because otherwise you cannot thoroughly forgive if you haven't identified the pain, because then you can't truly identify the meaning if you haven't identified the pain. So this is something that I'm working on personally. Um, even my ex, he calls me. He's currently in jail because I had a protection order and he just kept texting me and harassing me and violating it. So now he calls from jail to talk to the baby, and we'll kind of end up kind of chit chatting in the background. And I just said to him like, there's no need for us to talk. Like, there's no rehashing this, there's no going over it, there's no answers I will get to understand why our life went the way it went. You can't pinpoint exactly what happened in this circumstance or this argument or this, uh whatever it was, money, anger, um misunderstanding, being super vague. We had a business together. There's just a lot of questioning. In my mind, I think from not having my dad, I want to know. Like, I was too little, and I see my son, who's the exact same age. Talking about like family karma. My son is almost going to be the exact same age I was when my dad died, and I am the age my dad was when he died. So it really puts things in perspective. So I see how much he knows and understands and remembers and is attached to me. And so I can see, and I can also see from my brother, who passed away, how he was with his kids. Like, I love them, I love them, I love them, but the actions never spoke up. My mom said, even if your dad was alive, he wouldn't be around. And I didn't understand that until I saw my brother do that with his kids, where he loved them, but he just couldn't function in that manner. Um, and my grandfather on that side apparently was an alcoholic who was abusive, like my father was to my mother. And he somehow, him and my grandmother broke up, got divorced, and he ended up going out to California, what I heard last. But at any rate, so these family patterns of behavior and coping, like when I first went to therapy, I was like, this is how I would deal. And she's like, well, how did your mom used to deal with situations, your dad? How did your grandmother deal? And I can see that a little bit. Like, I have these conversations with my mom, and then I can see like my husband coping the way his mother copes, which is just to like sweep things under the rug. Um, which is probably how her mother coped, because she was a mom in the 50s. That's what they did when there was problems in the household. You keep it in the household. Um, which is kind of how it was when I was growing up in the 80s, where like you don't put your business on the street. But I didn't feel like I had a support system, or people to like really understand what was going on. Um, when there was an issue in the household. Um, and nothing terrible happened. Like, we were not like abused, but there was some like, rift there. Um, After my mom got remarried, just that took a while to kind of sort out. But yeah, so pretty much just forgiveness. And I'm learning too, like a lot of things in my life. And this is all reference for me. I don't know who's watching. I don't know if I'll post this publicly after this. I don't know. I feel like I'm being spied on. It's a little weird. I don't even know if I know you. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. So I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so she was talking about forgiveness, and I'm kind of learning that, like, I like knowledge. Like, I'll research and research and research when there's something that you can research. Like, I found out that my ex is a narcissist, so I'm researching hours of narcissists and like what they do, and he is like textbook, and it made me feel less crazy because he was gaslighting me, and I didn't know what that was at first, even though I'd studied psychology. Don't can't remember exactly all these things, and then I started to research and research, and there's some things that you can't. But I'm learning like some of the things, like I remember like a handful of definitions from psychology. Like I'd remember the rest if I brushed up on it, but some things just stick out, right? And memories as a child, I have so many memories, and I do remember certain things with my dad in them. And when my dad died, and I don't know, the screen is still flashing, and so I try to remember other stuff, but the point is the stuff that I do remember is the important things. So, like for instance, she was talking to me about forgiveness, and I was in a advanced psychology class in college, and my professor, to get my credits as advanced and doing extra research, gave me two options, and I didn't wasn't interested in the one. The other one was forgiveness. So I did all this research on forgiveness, and like here I am needing to learn how to truly forgive. And I watched Michael Bernard Beckwith, who's also a great person to get into, um, talk about this on Oprah. And I realized at that moment, whatever he had said, I'm like, I have to forgive my dad for dying. Like, it's not his fault. Like, there might have been some things that he could have done differently, like not drinking and driving. Um, but it wasn't his fault. Like, he didn't intentionally go die and leave six kids behind, you know? So I had to like forgive him, and that did give me a big sense of relief. But I had never really still processed the trauma of it. Like, I didn't realize I needed to process trauma of it because it was so normal. It was just my dad died. Like, and I said it to my mom, like processing like the writing thing of like who you are, what's your story. I was like, did we have a story? Like, you didn't really say you were a victim. She's like, yeah, no, you had a story. That was your story. Your dad died. Like, so it is that. Like, I grew up feeling like a victim, like I was missing something, but like we had everything we needed. We had food, we had clothes, we went on vacation once a year, we had a house, we had a backyard, we had two loving grandparents that were supportive. Um, so it was hard to say, like, I need to process this trauma because there was no abuse. Like my childhood, there was no abuse. We had what we needed. So it was just very hard. And I feel like my two younger sisters, like the one who's 15 months, I don't know if emotionally she got affected as much because of where you are at 15 months old. My other sister was in my mother's belly, and I've done a lot of like energy work and understanding energy. And she probably felt all of the emotions my mom felt going through the loss of her husband with all these kids, and the shock and the pain, the frustration. And, it wasn't a good relationship. Um, from what I hear of my mom, my dad, like he was kind of crazy and chaotic, and there's a lot of stuff there. So, and he sold drugs apparently, and there's a lot of stuff there. So if I keep going with this, we'll go through all of that. But so there's a lot of chaos in the house, and so I think my sister just really felt all of those things. Um, my older sister, she remembered a pretty traumatic memory um, with my dad being abusive, and I do not remember that one. And then I hear stories from my older brothers about like some crazy stuff going on. Like, I don't even want to say anything like incriminating. I mean, I don't know if that counts because he's dead, but like some crazy shit. And so it's just learning to process. Like, we all have stuff. So if the one person out there is listening, whoever you are in the world, or just for myself, just where I'm at, like, so coming back to like the forgiveness, like Like these things come full circle. I was listening to Michael Singer on one of his like lecture tapes. I took the course about letting go, and Sherry, my therapist, she's like, we have to like learn the process of letting go. And apparently it's a process. Like, and we need support to get through this. So this is just my journey. Um, my ex calls me from jail, and I'm like, why are we rehashing this? Like, one part of me, I'm like, what happened in this instance? Where did the money go this instance? Like, why did our life fall apart? Like, looking back, there was a ton of red flags that, like, we probably even shouldn't have been together. But a part of trauma is ignoring red flags. Didn't know that. Part of trauma is ignoring your gut instincts because you don't trust them, because you kind of lost a sense of security like early on. And then the other part is like wanting a sense of security, whether it's bad, like whether it's not a good, true, positive thing. Like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, because that that one. Like, and that's part of like the other things, like the trauma bonds, which is like that sense of comfort I had with my ex, I learned is, not just so much, even because I'd be like, why do I go back to chaos? Why do I keep going back? Like if I came to my parents and then like would go after a crazy situation, I would go back. And why would I go back? And at first I researched it, and it was like the chemicals, like you are addicted to these chemicals, which like I'm like, okay, that's like subconscious, because I wouldn't like tell myself go back to a bad abusive situation where, he's just freaking out, being volatile and all that stuff. Um, but part of the trauma bonds that I've learned recently, this lady called the Holistic Psychologist, she's on Instagram, totally recommend following her, um, is recreating the situations that we're comfortable with in our early years, like the chaotic household that was going on became what I knew. And so I subconsciously like kind of matched my subscaras with my ex, like, or with my husband. Like his, like they talk about some scars, which is like an energetic kind of scarring, like a trigger, like a thorn, like, and the energies almost kind of like in my mind, match up like puzzle pieces, where it's like, oh, like our scars are similar and our backgrounds were very similar. It turned out like his dad knew my dad, his my stepdad knew his grandfather, like his neighbor was neighbors with my grandparents years ago. I tried probably trick-or-treated at their house 30 years ago. And there was just a lot of similarities. And my cousin, who I didn't know knew my dad, had gone and seen Doug. He had a motorcycle shop. I helped him. I invested in him opening when we first were together, because I wanted to support his dreams and his goals, because he was clear, he knew what he wanted, and I wanted to be helpful and a part of that. Like I always felt like a part of my success is somebody else's success, but that is also part of codependency and trauma, is like putting other people first, um, in order to like kind of like not rock the boat. And that wasn't my intention to not rock the boat. My intention was to be helpful, um, and to support that vision, because um, I had just started a new job. I was in a job for a couple years when we met, and then started a new job. And like, so financially, I was like, I'll help support our household while you go and build a dream. And hopefully, it gets to a place where it can sustain itself and sustain the household. And it never quite got there. But at any rate, my cousin went and saw him, and he, was just like, you're just like your dad, because my dad had a car lot instead of a motorcycle shop. And like, the activities at that place were similar. So I'm sorry if this is like too bright. I'm right in front of a window so you can see me. Um, I kind of did my makeup today too. It's quarantine. That does not happen all the time. And I showered. I should be napping because I'm exhausted running after this toddler all day long. Um, yeah. So things coming full circle, lessons, letting go, and how Michael Singer says to let go is just to relax. Things come up, they stir you up. Just breathe, reconnect, let it go. And the other thing that like I really got a takeaway from with my therapy session today was like this needing to understand and put these puzzle pieces together. Like, was it drugs? Was it this? Was it that? Like, what caused all this chaos? And I brought that up to my husband. And I was like, no, it doesn't even matter because we are where we are and the trust is broken. Like everything is just broken and it doesn't matter. Like, but my mind wants to know. Intellectually, I know it doesn't matter, but I just always need that part for closure. Like I will beat a dead horse with something to try to understand it. And I think that stems from not getting closure with my dad dying. Like I knew what happened. My dad was here, my dad's gone. And I never knew how I found out, but my brother told me the memory. And he explained to me that one of our dogs had passed, and however much time between passing and my dad passing, but like I realized the dog never came back. And so he said the doggy or dad died. Dad's with, I forget the dog's name, Duke or something. And I guess I understood and I started crying. And but I don't think I could understand all of the things. Like I remember the pastor coming to the house. He was on the left side. He was tall. A teacher came with him on the right side. I don't remember. We didn't go to the funeral. I don't remember people coming to the house. And I asked my mom, was there a lot of like craziness, chaos? Um, so, so I think that's where it stems from. And where we kind of worked at was kind of not needing to know the backdrop of stuff. Like that kind of comes back to what I was saying. Like the things that you're supposed to learn come up. Like psychology getting assigned forgiveness being a big theme, and where I'm at and how I'm trying to like move on. Like I want all these scars out. They are fucking with me. I pick the wrong partners. I ignore my own vision. I ignore my own goals. I close off my heart and my throat chakra. Like I don't want those things anymore, right? So I have to be different. This is 27 minutes, way too long. So instead of like needing to know all the little pieces, like all I have to know is what was happened from my experience. So in my experience, you would question me and you'd be paranoid and like terrorize me. In the backdrop, were you on drugs? I would like to know. I will never know. And my ex, when I said, I shot him a bunch of questions, said, well, let me think about it. Well, you shouldn't have to think about the truth, you know? But I think for him, he's been lying so much. Like narcissists are liars. They have no introspection, apparently, which I've seen. They do not help themselves. They point blame at everybody else. They deflect on everybody else because he'll say, oh, well, what were you doing? I was giving everything to this relationship, like my love, my loyalty, my time, my energy, like my money, like everything. So don't come at me. Like you have no right to do that, and I will not tolerate that. That's the other thing with like boundaries, like learning boundaries. I'm learning so much stuff. Which is like so simple. Like even when I studied psychology, I'm like, this is so simple. This you just put labels on like the things that are easy to identify. But like some people are better at that than me. So at any rate, yeah, so the things I have to know are the things that are going to come to me. I don't have to dig so much. So my experience is the terrorizing, questioning paranoia. Like behind that, I didn't need to know. I didn't need because it wasn't part of my lesson. So, part of my lesson is just dealing with the tapestry that I see, not the background. And I have to just be okay with knowing that I'm not going to have that. Like, so if that has to be part of my closure, is just like dealing with like what's in front of me, which is really all you can deal with anyway, right? You have to find a way to deal with it. So, I titled this quarantine because not working, not going, um, like just not being able to move has brought all this up, all this aggravation and frustration. Like I was frustrated being a single mom before. I'm more frustrated now because like I'm like a monkey on a leash to this 2.5-year-old who's like amazing and wonderful and like loving and sweet and beautiful and funny. But being like tethered to him like constantly, like I don't have like a backyard that's fenced in where I can just like kind of let him play and like not keep an eye on him 24/7. I just don't have that. Like, this is not my household. It's not totally baby proofed, and he's really good with certain things, but there's still stuff he has access to get into. So I just, and I do energy releases. This thing called the body code, totally look into it. But you muscle test, and I had pain in my jaw. And I'm like, what is this pain? I thought I had a toothache for the first day. Then I thought maybe it was tied to seasonal allergies, and then like after like 4 or 5 days, I was like, there's something going on here. So I muscle tested it and came back. Then I felt forlorn. And this was just the other day. And like all week, I was like, I'm not doing well. Not doing well. Like, I'm freaking out. Like, I'm using coping mechanisms that are not healthy. Like, I just do not feel good. Like, never lost the baby weight, put weight on the top of it. Like, I stopped moving. These are shadows, right? It's putting light on my shadows. So I'm like, I just am not good. And I didn't know what the emotion was, but it said forlorn. And forlorn, I'm like, I kind of have it just, but what's the definition? What's like sadly, um, what was it? I took a screenshot of it on my phone. Sadly something, but like hopeless, abandoned, um, just like super sad, pretty much. Um, and like no hope for the future. And lonely, like sad, lonely, abandoned. It was like all these things, and I was like, ah, it makes total sense. I'm like, oh, and it was in my jaw, and I was like, there's a reason it's in my jaw. When I told my mom, and she's like, well, you talked to your ex, like trying to get it out. Like, this is how I'm feeling because I'm already frustrated about these things, and now you're in jail, and then you call me. So I'm on the phone trying to get the baby to talk to you while juggling the baby, juggling how I feel, and being like pestered by you, like where you're just like, oh, I got baptized in church and things are gonna be great. Let's just move forward, which is more sweeping under the rug. And like it's just been a lot. So, I'm trying to like every day take a little bit of time to say like what do I need to work on? And like thank God I have a therapist to talk to. Because friends and family don't want to be bothered by this. A little bit you can talk to them, but after like so much drama, especially the last year me and my husband were together for real, like it's tiring. So thank God I have a therapist that can really kind of, and that's what a good therapist does. They take what you give them. She educates me, she points things out. So it's like I always had like a sense of something was off in this scenario, in this situation, or like letting go, or like in relationships, it was hard to like let go, move on. There was always like that transitional phase. It was never like a clean cut, which to me I was like, oh, well, we're just still friends and we broke up. It was a decent breakup, and might have had some time apart, but we're still friends. We were friends before, if that was the case, or he is a good friend. I wish him well, but there was kind of like that overlap, which comes back to like the sense of security of like, for me it was more emotional. It wasn't like I was sleeping with all these people, like that's not my thing. It's just more emotional. Like I was comfortable with them emotionally, um and I just didn't want to let go of that. So anyway, 33 minutes. I'm gonna go try to lay down with the baby for a little bit before he gets up, but yeah, those are my big takeaways. It's just I don't need to know everything. I just need to deal with what is coming to me. I need to understand that my feelings are my feelings. So whether that person I'm having that disagreement with, or the person that betrayed me, or whatever that was, like they did it, and it's nice to get an apology, but it's never going to necessarily take away the feelings that they brought up or that hurt. So being able to just say, like, look at it like this is a debt that will never be paid, and to come to a place of forgiveness where you're kind of releasing that pain and that debt, where it's like your debt is paid in full. Like when I think about all the money with my ex, for me to get to a place where your debt is paid in full, like he'll never be able to repay me that money. I just hope that the lessons in this pain get me from a point of, kind of like poverty thinking, victimhood, um, to a place of like letting go all the subscars. Like looking at the pain, looking at my issues, looking at all this stuff so that I can choose differently in the future. Because that really, in the end, like, all we have is choice. I have a choice to forgive, I have a choice to make different decisions, I have a choice to look at red flags, I have a choice to trust myself and my gut. And, I was listening to something where it's like, all you can do is be you. And to be you, you need to listen to yourself. And they call them the three dantians, where your heart, I think it's your heart, might be your gut, has actually more neurons than your brain. It might be your gut because they say listen to your gut. Um, but your heart tells you too. Like, so if I can like tune in, and like when I do energy work and I muscle test, I will feel it in different parts of my body. So even though I'm muscle testing with like my arm, my fingers, or whatever, like I get a sensation in a part of my body that gives me the answer. So if I can just keep tuning in and clearing away the energy blocks, and become more sensitive to my intuition, um, the less pain, the more bliss, the more flow, which I love being in flow and alignment. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Today's day 30 officially of quarantine. Everybody was like freaking out the first 2 weeks, and I was like positive. I'm like, this, we won't drive as much, have as many emissions, we will teleconference more, so we don't have to do that and waste time, energy, traffic. People will learn other ways to do it, we'll reconnect. Like, I was like doing my positive thing where I bypass the pain that's coming and just go to like purpose, which has its place. But for a week or two, at first it was 2 weeks. We were supposed to be quarantined 2 weeks. Now they did it. Then the president did it for a month. So that was from mid March to April. April, he said another 30 days. And then the governor closed down all the schools, which to the school year is the end of end June, whatever schools close nowadays. So that's alarming because that means I think my daycare's going to be closed that long. I'm not positive. Maybe things will change. Maybe they had to do that for the fiscal year for schools. I'm not sure. But we're in mid March, or we're mid April. So today's officially 30 days. Quarantine from the president was at least another 2 weeks. No, 3 more weeks. I'm losing track of my mind. Mid March to April was 2 weeks. And then he said 30 more days. So that's at least another 2 more weeks. And then might be another like 6 more weeks. I don't effing know. I don't know. But yeah, so that's my shadow. These are all the things that I'm going through. It's frustrating. The pain has come. So I'm going to try to get on a better schedule. The weather is shittier than it was in March because now we're in April, so it's raining a lot where I live. It looks nice today. It was shitty yesterday. And most of the days have been cloudy and rainy and whatever. So just trying to keep my spirits high, keep self-care coming, keeping this introspection going. If I didn't have kids right now, I'd be learning the saxophone, I'd be painting, if I had a partner, I'd be all over them, meditating, sleeping in, watching Netflix, and working out. So I could try to incorporate any of those things while mothering a 2-year-old, or anybody out there watches this and you have some like good advice. Like, I thought about waking up early. I'm not a morning person. Sometimes I can get up to do my meditations early. Whatever you got. Anyway, I hope this helps. I hope if anybody's going through like a self-discovery process, or you're hitting the wall with the quarantine, I don't know how this works. This is my first one. Hit me up. And I don't know who's watching live, but if you want to say hi, that would be really cool. Okay. Thanks for listening. If you like this, let me know if you got anything out of it. If it's a bunch of ramblings, if I need to edit, I don't know how to edit videos. I thought about loading some of my old ones that were more personal stuff. A lot of times I end up talking about my day-to-day shit, survival mode, because my monkey brain is survival. If you pay attention to your monkey brain, for me, it's survival because of my need for security. But if you like it, let me know, and maybe I can structure the content a little bit better. But yeah, this is just my I'm not a therapist. This is just my journey. I'm starting you in the middle of it because I need an outlet because quarantine is driving me fucking bonkers right now. And I need somebody to talk to, I guess. All right. Have a good day.